So I was stuck in toxic relationships and people pleasing for pretty much my whole life up until a couple of years ago. And so something that contributed to this is childhood wounds because we mimic the patterns that we live from when we're a kid. And so from age 0 to 7, we're in a hypnagogic state, which means we're in a state akin to hypnosis. And so our brain waves are in a theta wave state. And so that means our brain absorbs information from our environment. Because when you're born into this world, you have to learn from your external environment how to survive, how to get food, how to interact, everything. And so when we grow up, we don't choose the environment that we grow up in. However, the programming that we receive is up to us to change it. And so the programming that we've received is how our parents treated us. If they were hyper present or if they are the opposite extreme, not present whatsoever. And so these two dynamics, and then it can get into the other extreme where they're smothering, where they put all their emphasis into you, or they're just never there for you. And so there's really those two dynamics that you can develop as a kid. And those form how we interact with other people, what type of relationships that we hold. Because if we were born in a toxic environment, we're going to be used to being in toxic environments because that's normal to us. That's what love is for us. Because during those years, we're learning what love is. And so each and every single one of us grew up in a different environment, so we have a different version of love. For some people, having somebody ignore them, they feel a sense of love. Or the opposite extreme, when they actually give them attention. And so, whatever dynamic you find yourself in, if you're consistently finding yourselves in a toxic relationship, whether it's a workplace, whether it's with a friend, and last and most important, a partner. And those dynamics are something that runs our life. Because the amount of energy that we spend on relationships is exorbitant. And so there's nothing else more in the world I found personally that can drain me than a toxic relationship. And I stayed in toxic relationship for many different relationships, but the last one I was in, it was almost 2 years. And the reason why I didn't stay in it is because I didn't love myself. I wanted to get that love from the other person that I was in a relationship. And so I was wanting to get that from my girlfriend at the time. And so even though that she would be super toxic, I would always come back and we'd always get back together. Because this is a dynamic that I was used to being in. I thought I had to work to receive love. And the little scraps that I got, I thought that was sufficient. I thought that was love. And so it would just be these highs and lows. And so when I'd receive that validation, I would feel that love and I'd feel good about myself. But when she would pull back, that's when I started to feel abandoned. And I didn't feel worthy. And so then I started to chase. and do things externally. And it led to me wasting so much time, wasting so much energy, and I was just trapped in this loop, going up and down. One moment it's a nice high, everything's perfect, everything's blossoming. The next moment, I feel like I'm literally dying. Like my own essence is being ripped out of me. Because I was giving up portions of myself, sacrificing myself in order to receive that love. Because that's what I thought I had to do. That's my childhood pattern. And so I struggled with this for so many years. And I kept wondering why. I'd get a different girlfriend and it would be the same thing to a different degree. Some were good relationships, but it was always that aspect of me that was wanting that external love and validation from the other person because I wasn't giving myself that. And so I was trapped in that. And so for a long time, I was pretty much always in relationships. There was times where I wasn't, but it always came to my subconscious mind and my programming to search for relationships. Because my programming was, okay, this is how we receive love. There's no other way to do it. And so I would enter into these dynamics that were detrimental to me. And I would just suffer through so many different turbulent circumstances because of that. And like I said earlier, this doesn't only entail to romantic relationships. This also entails friendships, family members, workplace dynamics, especially between you and your boss. Because that's just a play of that dynamic. And so as a kid, for an example, and this is something that I struggled with for a long time. So if you're used to being kind of mentally abused or, treated badly in such a way, it feels normal when a boss or somebody else like that does that. And when they demand too much of you. Because it also mirrors if a parent wanted too much from you. And so you feel like you have to go to those extremes to prove yourself, to get validation, to receive that love. And that's something I was stuck in for a long time. Because I felt like I had to hyper perform in order to feel worthy. And if I got scolded at work or talked down to, I felt my worth go down the drain. Because the last project I did was good, but now that somebody's criticizing me, my self-worth went out the window. Because it's based on an external decision, an external factor. And we can't control external factors. I can't control if it's going to rain. I can't control if the sun is going to shine. I can't control how that other person is going to treat me. I couldn't, control how my boss was going to react to a certain project, or I couldn't control how my girlfriend was going to treat me at the time. These are all things that we can't control. And so when we subject and base our own love based on things that we can't control, we go through these up and downs. And we suffer through them. And this is something that once I was able to break free out of, and the critical thing to being able to do that was the inner child meditation, healing our inner child, releasing these patterns, finding the love within. And so I'm going to release a inner child healing guided meditation in the next week or so. And it's going to be a complete healing guide that will allow you to take you from wherever you're at, whatever you're dealing with, and fully heal your inner child and these patterns. And so once you free yourself from these energy dynamics, you free up a lot of energy. You free up a lot of space for something new to come into your life. And so once I really healed that aspect of myself, inner child, that's when I was able to break free. That's when I was able to break free of relying on somebody for paying me, like a workplace, and, relying on somebody to feel love, or feeling like I need to people please other people just to receive that validation. And all those things, once I healed my inner child, all those things went away. And I was able to step in to where I'm at now, this freedom. Because if there's something that's holding us back, like a toxic relationship, toxic workplace, toxic friend group, toxic family member, whatever it is, we can't control how they react. But when we get sucked into that dynamic that we have with them, that pulls our energy from us. And so we only have a finite amount of energy per day. And so before, when I was in these toxic relationships, and I would end up crying or worrying or anxious, what my girlfriend at the time is, going to do or say, or, if they love me or whatever it is. And this is something that drained my energy, and it just kept me in a state of anxiety because it was keeping me from tapping into my own self-love, my own worth, because I was just used to this dynamic. Because whatever we're used to, we'll continue to repeat. And so for me, I was used to that. And this isn't something that I could see at the time, because a lot of us were unconscious of what's going on. I thought it was somebody else's fault. I thought it was the girl that I was with, her fault that I was attracting her, that I was getting into these relationships, that I got into this workplace, that I had that boss, that I had that one toxic friend. I thought it was their fault. But no, it's my fault. Because whatever we see in our life is something that we attracted. That's something that we brought into our own life. Because whatever you don't repel, you attract. And so when you're up against those circumstances and you realize that this person that you're just starting to talk to or date is toxic and showing out these signals, and you don't repel that, you're allowing that to come into your world. And so I allowed all the people that were ever toxic to me to come into my world, because that was my programming, that was acceptable. So I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to tap into my own love. I thought I had to find it from them, these toxic people. And so a lot of people are just stuck at this base level of life. And I see it so many times when people are trying to go after their dreams. People get pulled back down by the relationships that they're engaged in. And so when you're engaged in those toxic relationships and you're trying to do something new and you're trying to set out on a new path, you're going to get pulled back pulled back into these dynamics. And it's from this place of, I'm not whole, I'm not loved. And so when you're chasing that dream, you're going to be stuck because you're going to be pulled right back into it. You're going to be pulled right back into, I need love from this person, because that's our base need. If we don't have love, we don't feel like we can operate. We don't feel whole. We don't feel at peace. And so the key is to get it from ourselves. And so if we're not getting it from ourselves, we have to spend so much energy getting it from somebody else. And so when you have all these different toxic relationships around you, they pull you back into this from going to where you're meant to be going to. And so whether it's a dream, whether it's something that you want to step into, you can't fully step into that unless you let something go. And for me, I had to let those toxic relationships go in order to step into my power. I had to find that love within. And so this is something that inner child healing is key. And so I'm going to post a meditation in the group this next week. It's going to be the complete guide, how to get rid of these patterns, how to find the love within, how to break free of this, and how to step into your own power. This is the key to getting what you want. Peace and love, everyone.